Copilot X was announced and it has captured the attention of everyone in the world. I personally never thought that I would be excited about the next evolution of Copilot because I thought the first version was already quite magical and it does a lot of great things and it's a major productivity booster. But then Copilot X came and it changed the whole game. In my opinion, Copilot will fundamentally change how we write software and it's going to introduce a major paradigm shift to this industry. In this video, I'm not going to be talking about Copilot X from an opinionated perspective. I'm going to show you Copilot X and what it can actually do. This is a sneak peek into Copilot Chat to be more specific, and I'm going to be testing this tool in 3 different scenarios. I'm going to test its ability in helping me figure out how I can build an application with something I've never done before. I'm going to test its ability to understand existing code and give me reasonable explanations of what's going on in a code base that I have never touched before. And I'm going to test its ability at refactoring existing code that I'm quite aware of and I know its capabilities. Stick around. This is going to be an interesting exploration. None of it is scripted and it's all recorded for your entertainment and for educational purposes. Let's get started. Let's dig right into it. So I already have my VS Code Insiders editor running on the left-hand side. I have my terminal on the right-hand side. Don't ask me why I'm not using the integrated terminal. I've been having an issue with this nightly build of VS Code. So I don't want to troubleshoot this right now. I want to focus on the more important things. And the first experiment we're going to run with is to try to create a GitHub CLI extension using Go. And we're going to rely on Copilot Chat to tell us how we can do this and how we can write our entire code. So this is the first experiment where we're trying to create something we don't have a lot of information about, and we're going to rely on Copilot to teach us everything from the ground up. And in my opinion, this is really the best use case. So I already have a folder created for this extension. I'm going to go to the GitHub Copilot Chat window. And as you can see, it's already greeting me and giving me some suggestions for some prompts that I can start with. And the first one I'm going to go with is, how can I create a GitHub CLI extension using Go? And let's see what the prompt, or let's see what the response is. So it looks like it's giving us some really nice suggestions already. Let's see. The first one is install the GitHub CLI tool. All right, it's already installed. Create a new directory. Done. Initialize a new Go module in that directory using the go mod init command. Awesome. So I'm going to follow it as, I'm going to follow its suggestions. Let's see. Go mod init. Okay, we need to provide probably a package name over here. So we're going to call it github.com/link, which is my handle. And then we're going to, because we called it gh something, that's what we're going to do. We created the new module, create a new Go file for your extension and define your commands using the Cobra package. Interesting. So it's already suggesting a package we could use. Use the gh package to interact with the GitHub API and perform actions on behalf of the user. Nice. I like the suggestion because it's not pushing us in the direction of we have to build everything from the ground up. It's actually pushing us to use and leverage the existing packages to build something better. And then build the extension using the go build command and test the extension using gh extension list to ensure it's properly installed. Well, let's see. And oh, it's giving us also some boilerplate for stuff we can start with. Let's actually copy this whole thing. I want to check if it's really, so I'm assuming this is going to be my main. So let's create a new file here, main.go. So obviously for a complete Go beginner, this is going to be, there are some nuances that are hidden, but because I've probably done this a bit before, I am already anticipating what's going to happen a little bit. So, all right. So it's using some packages that are probably not available for me here. And then it's calling it my extension. And then it's adding a command. This looks pretty reasonable to me, honestly. I don't know if it's going to work, but let's save the file and see. And let's try to build this. So let's assume that I know nothing about Go. How can I build this package? And let's see. You can use Go build. All right. This will create an executable called my extension. Yeah, we probably need to change the name because it's called gh something, right? So let's try go build first of all. And it's complaining. Now the complaint is that we need to install these missing dependencies. Already we have the solution. So I would have normally asked Copilot CLI, what does this error mean? But because already Go was helpful, I'm gonna go with these suggestions. All right, awesome. I think we are ready to try again. Go build. All right, I think this package doesn't really exist. And this is where we need to be a bit more careful with how we do things, right? Because it's suggesting that we download and install packages that we really don't know who are the authors for and we really did not expect. So this could also be an attack vector that could be leveraged by certain malicious actors. So it seems that we're not really able to use this package at all. All right, let's see. What does this error mean? And I'm gonna have Copilot chat actually try to clarify a little bit what's going on. So this error message means that GitHub and whatever this package is not found in your Go module dependencies. To resolve this error, you can run go get. Your suggestion does not resolve the problem. Are you sure this package exists? So now it's apologizing and it's revising. Ah, interesting. So my response got filtered. Let's try it one more time. All right, this time it worked. And it's saying, it seems that GitHub does not exist in the CLI module. Instead, you can use this Google package. Interesting. I'm also not sure this is the right path. Well, what the heck? Let's see. Maybe it's onto something. So I'm just gonna paste everything as suggested. We're gonna go again to our terminal. We're gonna run go build. And again, it's complaining about this module being missing. And we're gonna try to install it. Well, it seems that this one exists. And we have actually, let's see, is this working? Too many errors. All right, nice. So obviously there's something going wrong here. Let's make an attempt at fixing these issues. So first of all, this is declared but not used. Okay, that's clear. And here it's creating a new client for GitHub. Enable repo override. What is this one actually? All right. Well, this is already an example to show you how you cannot fully 100% rely on Copilot chat to do pretty much everything. And this is also a clear indication that these tools are really not ready to replace developers in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, my prompts could be improved to be more specific. And by that simple fact, that means that I'm already sort of writing the code in the prompt, or at least I know what I want to achieve, that I'm feeding into the Copilot chat before it can generate something meaningful, useful, and functional. This is a clear response that these tools are not going to replace software engineers anytime soon. However, they are helpful in at least getting us started. So I don't want to really spend a lot of time trying to create this extension and resolve all of these problems. Most likely, I'm not going to need this, and maybe this client works or it doesn't. We need to go check the interface. But this is probably an HTTP client that has been built by Google to leverage the GitHub APIs. However, there are better ways with which we can leverage the GitHub API. The CLI team has already published packages that allow us to create HTTP clients. They allow us to also create GraphQL clients, which are all very much more helpful in this particular case. And they will allow us to do whatever we need to do. They also handle very nicely tabulation. They handle pagination, API rate limits, and all of that fun stuff. As a first attempt to create something we have no clue about, you've seen it yourself. Maybe we can improve this, maybe not. We will see. I will leave it up to you when you get access to this feature to test things up to your satisfaction. Now we can safely proceed to the second experiment, which is trying to use Copilot X to help us understand an existing code base that we have no clue about. And since Elon has shared the Twitter algorithm and open sourced it very recently, why not try to make sense of it using Copilot? So let's first of all clone this open source repository on GitHub, which is in the Twitter organization, and it's called The Algorithm. I hope it's not that big, and we're going to wait for it to clone. And it seems that it's working quite well. All right, perfect. It's not big at all. So let's go into The Algorithm and let us open this inside our VS Code to see how our Copilot is going to handle this. So obviously, I'm not really sure Copilot can reason about existing folders without tabs being open. I think when tabs are open, it can analyze and assess the context and give us suggestions based on that. I'm not really confident that it's able to analyze a folder structure, but let's give it a shot. Can you see the files inside the directory? What is it called? Project stamp The Algorithm. Let's make sure that we're in the proper directory. Let's give it a full path, actually. Maybe that'll help. I'm not really sure what's going to be the outcome. Let's see. So to see the files inside this, oh, it's giving me a suggestion of how I can see the files. Okay, obviously it doesn't have that awareness, so it does not really see the files on your system, which is good in my opinion, because I definitely don't want all of my files to be pushed elsewhere. I only want whatever I'm opening to be analyzed by Copilot. Now, let's maybe start with the README. So it's a set of services. Okay, that's fine. And then we have features. This is also another example of why developers are still needed. Someone needs to make sense of this architecture, and for us to be really able to navigate it, we need to know where we can start. But I think Copilot is able to help with a few things. So let's see. Home mixer. Maybe let's look at the service. And it's written in Scala. I have no clue how Scala works, or I've never used it before. So let's try something a bit drastic. Let's ask Copilot, what is this code doing? And let us see if it can spit out something. So this code defines an object called home mix alert config with some nested objects and method. It also imports some classes. So it's literally describing verbatim, or like a literal description of what is going on. But I'm not really sure this is useful for us. Why? Because we need more context, right? Obviously. And I'm pretty sure also Copilot needs more context, and it's not going to do a lot of magic here. The alerts include empty response rate alert. Yeah, okay, fine. Let's keep this file open and let us see here. And let's be a bit more specific. So for example, let's ask it, what is this class and method doing? All right, so this is a Scala class named whatever that has a constructor. Okay, fair enough. I mean, that's useful. Like, I didn't even know that that's how you define the constructor in Scala, like for a class implicitly. So that's pretty cool. Okay, I learned something new today. The class has a method named getScored. GetScored tweets response that takes two parameters, request type and a parameters object. Fine. The method returns a stitch. Okay, so this method also calls another method of the product pipeline registry. Well, I mean, I can read this in the code already, sort of. So it's not particularly helpful here. But what I can do, for example, what is a stitch? And I think this is where Copilot Chat will really shine. It's really in explaining the syntax and the grammar of the language, maybe even some of the quirkiness of certain languages. They could be explained by Copilot Chat, and I think this is where the real value is going to come in. So in the context of the code you provided, Stitch is likely a type alias or a custom class defined elsewhere in the code base. Amazing. So it's already provided us with feedback that this is not necessarily a language feature, but rather it's more something that is custom defined. And because I don't know Scala, that's obviously something helpful in trying to understand this code base. And let's say, however, based on the name, it's possible that Stitch is a type that represents the result of stitching together multiple data sources of processing types. Amazing. I think this is very useful as feedback, honestly, even though we didn't really make anything groundbreaking yet. But I like this. I like that. I mean, as a beginner or as someone new to a language and a code base, I would love something that can create this separation or distinction between language features and between the custom stuff that we have built. I think that's of great added value, honestly. So let's see over here. Oh, interesting. com.twitter. It's a fun code base. It seems that the folks there are really enjoying themselves while writing this. Okay, that's fine. So I'm not really sure. I'm not able to think of a path where I can leverage Copilot Chat to do all of the heavy lifting for me. Maybe what I can do is I can feed it maybe the README and ask it to tell me. I can ask it stuff about the README, for example, instead of me going and reading the whole thing. So let's give it a shot. All right, so it's trying to explain the README for me, but I'm not really sure that's exactly what I want. Give me a summary of the readme.md file that I have open. And let's see if I can get an interesting summary. So the readme file provides an overview of Twitter's home mixer. All right, that's useful. The service is built on Product Mixer, a custom Scala framework that facilitates building feeds of content. Okay, interesting. The For You recommendation algorithm in Home Mixer involves several stages, including candidate generation, feature hydration, scoring and ranking using an ML model, filters and heuristics, mixing and product features and surveying. Okay, I can use this. I can use this to navigate. So that's fantastic. The pipeline structure for Home Mixer was organized around pipelines that split the execution into transparent and structured steps. Requests first go into the product pipeline. That's fine. Each mixer recommendation pipeline may run multiple candidate pipelines to fetch. Okay, so let's try something like, what is candidate generation and where can I find the code that handles this? Let's see if it's going to help with that. So candidate generation is the process of fetching tweets from various candidate sources. Awesome. Such as the early bird search index, user tweet, entity graph, CR mixer, and follow recommendation service. This is the first stage of the For You recommendation. So I'm not really sure if it's hallucinating this or this is actually coming from the README file, but that's awesome. And the code that handles candidate generation is likely located in the scored tweets recommendation pipeline config class. All right, that's perfect. Let's see. Oh, so this class exists. Brilliant. And it looks like it's quite an extensive definition, which is amazing, honestly. Like, I think this is a fantastic starting point for going down this path and trying to understand whatever is happening in this code base. You've seen it yourself. I think if we have a combination of a well-written README file as well as a good structured or well-structured project, I think Copilot Chat is a fantastic tool that can help you navigate an existing code base. And honestly, it does deliver on the promise if you really can tweak your prompts in a way with which you can extract the insight or the value that Copilot Chat provides. So obviously there's a learning curve here, and you're not going to get the maximum value from the get-go. So if you start playing around with this tool a bit more and you learn the limitations of it and how it can derive context, I think it will be a fantastic assistance in understanding existing code bases, as you've seen now yourself. All right, now we got to the last experiment for this video, which is trying to use Copilot Chat and Copilot X in general to refactor an existing code base. And I'm going to use a project I launched or I published a few years ago, which is pretty much a small utility that allows you to search your start repositories on GitHub. And even though you can use the search functionality in the UI to do this, I think being in the terminal is a much nicer experience, at least for me. And I would like to be able to search these bookmarked repositories because sometimes I star certain tools that can come quite handy when I'm doing a certain thing. Without further ado, I've written this small utility in Node, or in JavaScript to be more specific. And it's quite simple. It's composed of two main files, the CLI.js, which is nothing but a small module that's just gonna parse my arguments that I pass through the CLI, and it will call the method or function that's called search in my main.js file, and it will pass these options to it. The search is composed of multiple functions that are pretty much going to call the API of GitHub, fetch all of the start repositories. It's also going to cache a version of this response locally on disk so that we don't always make calls to the GitHub API. This is useful whenever you have a large amount of start repositories. The calls can be quite expensive and you could be hitting the rate limit with that. Also, it will make the utility slow. And here we are in this search function. We're just, loading the file from cache and then executing a search based on it. And that's pretty much it, spitting the output based on that search to the user. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to have Copilot try to refactor some of these functions and methods. So first of all, let's try the explain functionality, right? So let's assume we have someone new who doesn't really know what this code does. So let's see if Copilot is going to do a good job with explaining this small utility. So as you can see here, it already figured out that this is an OJS module. It searches through a user's start repository on GitHub for a certain search parameter. That's fine. It uses the GitHub API to fetch the start repositories. I think that's great, honestly. Like, it's knowing what I know about this utility. I think it's doing a great job at explaining what's happening here. And it says the search is performed using a full text search algorithm, perfect, that searches through the full name, description, and homepage fields of these repositories. That's very accurate. And honestly, like, it's not very difficult to detect via the code because you can pretty much see it over here in this part. But this is because I know the code already. If you don't, this is very insightful information that allows you to parse this code much more easily, right? The module is composed of several functions that perform different tasks like validate parameter, construct API URL, calculate pages, fetch pages, all of which is correct. And then the module uses several packages. That's also very correct. Mini search for performing the full text searches, so on and so forth. That is a very good explanation of this code, honestly. I think it's doing a bit of a better job here with this code, just because I think it's because it's all contained in one file, as opposed to the previous experiment we ran on the Twitter code base, which is a bit more decoupled and decomposed. And I don't know how much this stuff is going to influence how we write software in the future, right? Because we've been using stuff like object-oriented programming and implementing certain design patterns, not necessarily for the benefit of the machine, but for our benefit as end users and readers of the code. I wonder if we're going to readapt our design patterns to now serve the machine who's serving us, as opposed to writing human readable code from the get-go. So that will be interesting to see down the line. But for now, let's focus on the experiment that I wanted to run, which is trying to refactor some of the code. So let's do this. First of all, I want to eliminate some of this stuff, and I want to try to use async and await in this code. Like, this is one of the first things I would try to probably introduce, and maybe even get rid of Axios, because like, what's the point of it at this point? This was written like years ago. Axios was a thing. Right now, Node supports all of these different ways of making HTTP requests and creating promises quite natively. So let's see, refactor this code to stop using Axios and use fetch instead. Fantastic. Also use async await instead of promises. Copilot figured that out. So let's see what it's gonna spit out over here. Brilliant. I think this is correct. So the URL is being constructed over here. And then we have the headers that are being appended. And we have a constant that is response, where we're calling the fetch function, and we're passing the URL in the headers. Then we're getting the JSON data, and then we're returning it. And we also added async. I think this is perfect. Let's give it a thumbs up. And let us just accept this, because I think it works. Now, obviously, with this adjustment, it's going to break other parts of the code, because we need to await this function right now, which isn't what we're doing. Or maybe it still works. Let's give it a shot. npm install. npm run build. And let's give it a shot now. So bin start search -u link -f, let's say ES6 or whatever, and we're gonna see if this works. Okay, perfect. So as we expected, this is failing, obviously, because it's saying fetch is not defined. So let us continue leveraging Copilot's capabilities over here, and let us go to the chat and say, what does this error mean? All right, fetch is not defined means that fetch function is not defined in the current scope. The fetch function is a built-in function in modern web browsers, so on and so forth. How can I fix this error? All right, so the fix is to use node fetch, and the alternative is whatever we were using, which is Axios. That's fine. So let us actually do the following. npm install node fetch. Maybe I need to upgrade my node actually. Let's do this. Is fetch available natively? No, the fetch function is not available natively for Node.js. This is something I think we need to reconfirm. Let me do a quick search. All right, we're using version 16, which I think is the problem over here. I think fetch is available in later versions, probably available from version 17.5 onward. All right, we're gonna skip this because I think you got the gist of it. The point was to show you how we can refactor the code, that existing code that we have, and show you how we can take it all the way. I think by upgrading our node runtime over here, we're going to be able to get this code to run. Probably we need to make a couple of adjustments also wherever this function is being called, and fix it over here, maybe by adding like an await. And we can also ask Copilot to do this for us, but I just wanted to show you how some of the refactoring works. And that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to show you for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps me a lot with this channel. It's a funny coincidence that about a year and a half ago, we're getting close to 2 years, I published my first video and my first ever YouTube video and the start of this channel, and the topic was GitHub Copilot. And honestly, back then, I didn't really think I'm gonna make another video about Copilot, but it's just a funny coincidence that almost a year and a half later, I am making a video about the next generation of this awesome, awesome tool. which I think is going to be highly impactful. And I cannot wait for every one of you to get your hands on it, because it's going to change how we write software. And I'm really excited about what's coming up down the line. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.